I'm Maya Chen, 28, a senior marketing director at a tech startup. Despite my professional success, I still feel like the overlooked middle child in my high-achieving family. The crystal chandelier above the mahogany table cast fractured rainbows across my mother's best china, each shard of light dancing like the fake smile I'd been wearing for the past 20 minutes. The Ritz-Carlton's private dining room smelled of truffle oil and old money, a combination that usually made my mouth water, but tonight sat heavy in my chest like a stone. Maya, sweetheart, you're at table 2. Mom said without looking up from her seating chart, her manicured finger pointing toward a smaller round table tucked in the corner where my teenage cousins were already slouched over their phones. The kids' table. At 28. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you're hooked already, a like and subscribe will keep these stories coming. I stood frozen, watching my older brother David pull out a chair next to Dad at the main table, his wife Sarah already deep in conversation with my aunt about their latest European vacation. My younger sister Emma, barely 25, settled gracefully into the seat that should have been mine, her law degree apparently earning her a spot among the adults, while my marketing director title meant nothing. The sound of silverware against porcelain filled the silence as I processed what was happening. This wasn't just dinner. This was my parents' way of telling me exactly where I stood in the family hierarchy, and it wasn't with the grown-ups. "There's been a mistake," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "I'm not sitting at the kids' table." Mom's laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a storm. "Oh, honey, it's not the kids' table. It's just more comfortable over there. Less pressure, you know? You can relax." Relax. As if being relegated to sit with my 16-year-old cousin, who is currently filming a TikTok dance, was relaxing. As if watching my siblings discuss real estate investments and career moves from across the room while I made small talk about high school drama was some kind of gift. The weight of every family gathering, every subtle slight, every time my achievements were brushed aside while David's promotion or Emma's internship at a prestigious law firm was celebrated, crashed over me like a wave. I thought of the presentation I'd given last week that secured a $1 million client, the team I'd built from nothing, the respect I commanded in boardrooms filled with executives twice my age. None of it mattered here. I felt the familiar sting behind my eyes, the same feeling I'd had at 12 when they forgot my birthday because David had made varsity football. The same hollow ache from 18 when my college acceptance was overshadowed by Emma's perfect SAT scores. The same invisible weight that had followed me through every family milestone, making me feel like a guest in my own life. But something was different this time. Maybe it was the way the chandelier light caught the disappointment in my reflection on the window, or maybe it was the sound of my cousin asking if I wanted to see her new nose ring, but I felt something shift inside me. A door closing. A decision crystallizing. I smiled. Not the practiced, people-pleasing smile I'd perfected over the years, but something real and terrifying and final. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the suddenly quiet room. "You know what?" I said, my voice carrying across both tables now. "You're absolutely right, Mom. I should relax." I picked up my purse, a designer bag I'd bought with my own money from my own successful career, and slung it over my shoulder. The room had gone completely silent except for the soft jazz playing through hidden speakers and the distant sound of traffic 20 floors below. "Maya, where are you going?" Dad's voice held a note of confusion, as if he genuinely couldn't understand why I might be upset. I looked around the room one more time, taking in the faces of my family. David looked annoyed, as if I was causing a scene that might reflect poorly on him. Emma seemed genuinely puzzled, her perfect eyebrows drawn together in concern. Mom's mouth had formed a small O of surprise, her hand frozen halfway to her wine glass. "I'm going home," I said simply. "Enjoy your dinner." I walked toward the door, my heels clicking against the marble with each step. Behind me, I heard Mom's voice, higher now, more urgent. "Maya, don't be ridiculous. Come back and sit down. We can rearrange the seating if you're really that upset about it." I paused at the door, my hand on the brass handle, and turned back one last time. "It's not about the seating, Mom. It's about the fact that you thought this was okay in the first place. The elevator ride down felt like falling through space, each floor a year of accumulated hurt dropping away. By the time I reached the lobby, my phone was already buzzing with texts, but I didn't look at them. I walked out into the cool evening air, past the valet who offered to get my car, past the doorman who tipped his hat politely. I just walked. The city lights blurred together as I made my way down the sidewalk, my breath coming in short puffs in the October air. I'd made it 3 blocks when I realized I was crying, not the ugly sobbing I'd expected, but quiet tears that felt like relief. My phone buzzed again. And again. And again. I pulled it out, expecting to see the usual family group chat filled with damage control and guilt trips. Instead, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A text from an unknown number. Saw what happened at dinner. We need to talk. There are things about your family you don't know. Meet me at Café Luna in an hour if you want the truth about why they really treat you this way. The neon sign of Café Luna flickered against the rain-streaked window like a dying heartbeat, casting pink and blue shadows across the empty tables inside. I'd been sitting in the corner booth for 20 minutes, nursing a coffee that had gone cold while my phone vibrated relentlessly against the scarred wooden table. 17 missed calls. 43 text messages. All from my family. I hadn't read a single one. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see a woman in her 50s entering, shaking droplets from a black umbrella. She had silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun and wore a wool coat that looked expensive but understated. Her eyes swept the cafe until they found mine, and something in her expression made my stomach clench. She knew me, but I had never seen her before in my life. Maya, she said, sliding into the booth across from me without invitation. Thank you for coming. Who are you? My voice came out sharper than I intended, but the events of the evening had stripped away my usual politeness. My name is Catherine Walsh. I was your father's first wife. The words hit me like ice water. Dad's first wife? He'd never mentioned being married before Mom. In all my 28 years, through every family story, every photo album, every casual conversation about the past, there had never been any mention of a Catherine Walsh. That's impossible, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I was studying her face. Something about the shape of her eyes, the way she held her shoulders, felt familiar in a way that made my skin crawl. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope, placing it carefully on the table between us. I know this is a shock. Your parents have worked very hard to erase me from their history. But after what I witnessed tonight, she shook her head. I couldn't stay silent anymore. You were at the restaurant? The thought of being watched, of my humiliation being observed by a stranger, made heat rise in my cheeks. I was having dinner with a client at the bar. I recognized your father immediately, even after all these years. And when I saw how they treated you, her voice trailed off, and she pushed the envelope closer to me. Open it. My hands trembled as I lifted the flap. Inside were photographs, old ones with the slightly faded quality of pictures from the 80s. The first one showed a much younger version of my father in a tuxedo, standing next to a beautiful woman in a wedding dress. The woman was Catherine, but that wasn't what made my breath catch. It was the second photo that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. My father, Catherine, and a little girl who couldn't have been more than 3 years old. A little girl with dark hair and serious eyes who looked exactly like me at that age. The child was wearing a pink dress and holding Catherine's hand, smiling up at the camera with the same crooked grin I saw in my own baby pictures. I don't understand, I whispered, but I did. Deep down, in a place I'd never let myself examine too closely, I did understand. Your father and I were married for 6 years, Catherine said quietly. We had a daughter together, Rebecca. She would have been your age now if she'd lived. The cafe seemed to tilt around me. The sound of rain against the windows became deafening, and I could taste copper in my mouth. What happened to her? Leukemia. She was diagnosed when she was 4, fought for 2 years. Your father, he couldn't handle it. The medical bills, the stress, watching our little girl suffer. He left us when she was in the final stages. I stared at the photograph, at this child who could have been my twin, and felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. When did she die? 3 months before you were born. The timeline crashed into me like a physical blow. Dad had left his dying daughter and married my mother while his first child was still alive. I was born into the space left by a dead girl, a replacement for a daughter he'd abandoned. He never told you about Rebecca, did he? Catherine's voice was gentle, but there was steel underneath. Never mentioned that you weren't his first daughter? I shook my head, unable to speak. Everything made sense now. The way my parents had always held me at arm's length, the way my achievements never seemed to matter, the way I'd always felt like I was trying to fill a space that wasn't quite the right shape for me. I wasn't their daughter. I was their do-over. Why are you telling me this now? I managed to ask. Catherine's eyes hardened. Because watching them treat you like you don't matter, like you're somehow less than your siblings, makes me sick. You deserve to know the truth about why they can't love you the way they should. My phone buzzed again, and this time I looked at it. A text from Mom. Maya, please come back. We're worried about you. This is silly. Silly. My entire life had been built on a lie, and she thought my reaction was silly. There's more, Catherine said, reaching into the envelope again. This time she pulled out a legal document, yellowed with age. Your father never paid a cent of Rebecca's medical bills. When she died, I was left with over $200,000 in debt. I lost our house, had to declare bankruptcy. I took the document with numb fingers. It was a court order for child support and medical expenses, dated just months before my birth. At the bottom, in red ink, was a stamp. Judgment unsatisfied. He owes you money, I said, the words feeling strange in my mouth. He owes me a lot more than money. But yes, legally, he still owes me everything he should have paid for Rebecca's care. Catherine leaned forward, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. Maya, your family's wealth, their lifestyle, the private schools, the luxury dinners, it was all built on abandoning a sick child. The rain outside had intensified, drumming against the windows like fingers tapping impatiently. I thought about the Ritz-Carlton dinner, the crystal chandelier, Mom's designer dress. I thought about David's expensive car and Emma's private college tuition. All of it paid for with money that should have gone to keeping a little girl alive. What do you want from me? I asked. Catherine smiled, but it wasn't a kind expression. I want justice. And I think after tonight, you might want the same thing. She stood up, leaving the envelope and its contents on the table. Think about it, Maya. Think about how they've treated you your whole life, and ask yourself if you really want to keep protecting people who see you as nothing more than a replacement for the daughter they failed. As she walked toward the door, she paused and looked back. Oh, and Maya? There's one more thing you should know. Rebecca had a trust fund, money from my parents that was supposed to go to her when she turned 18. Since she died, that money legally belongs to any other children your father might have. The door chimed as she left, and I was alone with the photographs and documents spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the empty street in stark black and white. My phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen, and for the first time in my life, I felt something close to hatred when I saw it. I answered on the fourth ring. Maya, sweetheart, where are you? Your mother is beside herself with worry. I'm learning about Rebecca, I said quietly. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought the call had dropped. When Dad finally spoke, his voice was different. Smaller. Who told you that name? Does it matter? I asked. Is it true? Another long pause. In the background, I could hear voices, my family still at the restaurant, probably trying to salvage their perfect evening. Maya, you need to come home. We need to talk about this as a family. Like we talked about it for the past 28 years? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. I'm done, Dad. I'm done pretending that the way you treat me is normal. I'm done being grateful for scraps from people who should love me unconditionally. You don't understand the whole situation. Then explain it to me, I shouted, loud enough that the barista behind the counter looked over in concern. Explain how you abandoned a dying child. Explain how you built our family's life on money that should have saved her. Explain how you could look at me every day and never once tell me I had a sister. She wasn't your sister, Dad said, and his voice was cold now.
She's dead.
She has nothing to do with you or our family. The cruelty of it, the casual dismissal of a child he'd once loved enough to marry her mother, hit me like a physical blow. This was who my father really was. This was why I'd never been enough. You're right, I said. She has nothing to do with your family, but she has everything to do with mine. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, the storm was getting worse, and I realized I had nowhere to go. I couldn't go home to my apartment, not yet. I couldn't face the familiar walls and the photos of family gatherings where I'd smiled and pretended everything was fine. I gathered up the photographs and documents, sliding them back into the envelope. As I did, my fingers brushed against something else, something Catherine had left behind. A business card. Marcus Webb, private investigator. On the back, in Catherine's handwriting, he's been looking into your father's finances for me. Call him tomorrow. There's more to uncover. I stared at the card as lightning illuminated the cafe again, and I realized that my old life, the one where I tried so hard to earn love that was never going to come, was over. But I had no idea what was waiting for me in the darkness ahead. The private investigator's office smelled like stale coffee and old paper, a cramped space above a dry cleaner that felt worlds away from the polished conference rooms where I usually conducted business. Marcus Webb looked exactly like Central Casting would order for a PI. Rumpled shirt, 5 o'clock shadow at 10 in the morning, and eyes that had seen too much. Catherine said you'd be calling, he said, gesturing to a chair that had seen better decades. Though I'll admit, I didn't expect it to be this soon. I'd spent the night in a hotel, staring at the ceiling and replaying every family interaction through this new lens of understanding. Every birthday where my gifts seemed like afterthoughts. Every achievement that was met with polite applause while David and Emma's successes were celebrated with champagne. Every time I'd felt like I was performing for an audience that would never be satisfied. How long have you been investigating my father? I asked. Marcus pulled out a thick file folder, the kind that suggested months of work. About 8 months. Catherine hired me after she saw an article about your father's company going public. She wanted to know if he'd finally made enough money to pay what he owed. He opened the folder, revealing bank statements, property records, and photographs I recognized from my father's social media. Your family is worth approximately $12 million. The house in Westchester, the vacation home in the Hamptons, investment portfolios, your father's stake in his consulting firm. More than enough to cover what he owes Catherine with interest. But that's not all you found, is it? I could see it in his expression, the way he was building up to something bigger. No, it's not. Marcus pulled out another set of documents. Maya, your father didn't just abandon Rebecca financially. He actively worked to hide assets during her illness. He transferred money to offshore accounts, put property in your mother's name, even liquidated Rebecca's college fund, money that was supposed to be untouchable. The room seemed to shrink around me. He stole from his own dying daughter? Worse than that. I found medical records. Rebecca could have been treated at a specialized facility in Switzerland. The treatment had a 60% success rate, but it cost $500,000. Your father had the money. He chose not to spend it. I felt like I was drowning in information, each revelation pulling me deeper into a version of my family I'd never imagined.
Why?
Why would he do that? Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying my face. Because he'd already decided to start over. He'd met your mother, she was pregnant with you, and Rebecca represented his past mistakes. It was easier to let her die than to fight for her life. The words hung in the air like poison. I thought about all the times Dad had told me I was his miracle baby, how he'd say I brought light back into his life. I'd always thought it was because I was special. Now I understood it was because I was convenient. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. The trust fund Catherine mentioned? It's real, and it's substantial. Rebecca's maternal grandparents left her $2 million to be held in trust until she turned 18. Since she died before that, the money should have gone to any other children your father had.
To me, I said. To you.
But your father never claimed it. Never even told the trustees that Rebecca had died. As far as they know, she's still alive, and the money is still sitting there, growing with interest. It's worth about $4 million now. $4 million. Money that was legally mine, that had been mine for 10 years, sitting in an account while I'd worked my way through college with student loans and part-time jobs. While I'd struggled to afford my first apartment, while I'd saved for months to buy a decent car. My phone had been buzzing all morning with calls and texts from my family, but I'd left it on silent. Now I pulled it out and saw 47 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic messages. The latest one from Mom made my blood run cold. Maya, we know you met with someone last night. We need to talk before you do something you'll regret. Some secrets are buried for good reasons. They know, I said, showing Marcus the message. He nodded grimly. I figured they would. Your father's not stupid. The moment you mentioned Rebecca's name, he would have started damage control. What kind of damage control? Marcus pulled out his laptop and turned it toward me. On the screen was a news article dated that morning. Local business leader Robert Chen announces charitable foundation in memory of late daughter. I read the article with growing disbelief. My father had announced the creation of the Rebecca Chin Foundation for Childhood Cancer Research, complete with a photo of him looking solemn and philanthropic. The article mentioned his tragic loss and his decades-long commitment to honoring his daughter's memory through private charitable work. He's rewriting history, I whispered. He's covering his tracks. By tomorrow, there will be a foundation website, probably some backdated donation records, maybe even a few people willing to say they've known about his charitable work for years. Your father is very good at making problems disappear. I thought about all the times I'd admired Dad's business acumen, his ability to navigate complex deals and come out ahead. I'd never realized I was watching a master manipulator at work. What do I do? I asked. Marcus closed the laptop and leaned forward. That depends on what you want. Do you want justice for Rebecca? Do you want the money that's rightfully yours? Do you want to expose your father for what he really is? Or do you want to walk away and try to rebuild some kind of relationship with your family? Before I could answer, my phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen, and something in Marcus's expression told me I should take it. Maya, thank God. David's voice was strained, urgent. Where are you? We need to talk, all of us as a family. I'm busy, I said. Maya, listen to me. I know you're upset about last night, and I know someone has been filling your head with stories about Dad's past, but you need to hear our side before you do anything rash. Our side. As if there were two equally valid versions of abandoning a dying child. What's your side, David? How do you justify letting a 4-year-old girl die because it was inconvenient? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. Maya, you need to understand something. That situation was complicated. Dad was young, he made mistakes, but he's spent his whole life trying to make up for them. The foundation he's starting. The foundation he announced this morning? The one that didn't exist yesterday. Another pause. You're being manipulated by someone who has an agenda. Catherine Walsh is a bitter woman who's been trying to destroy our family for decades. Whatever she's told you, whatever document she's shown you, it's not the whole truth. Then tell me the whole truth. Come home. Come to the house, and we'll explain everything. All of us together. I looked at Marcus, who was shaking his head vigorously. He mouthed the word trap. I'll think about it, I said and hung up. Don't go to that house, Marcus said immediately. Your father has had all night to prepare. He'll have lawyers there, maybe even a psychiatrist ready to declare you mentally unstable. Rich men don't go down without a fight. Then what do you suggest? Marcus smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. I suggest we beat him at his own game. We go public with everything. The medical records, the hidden assets, the trust fund. We make it impossible for him to spin this as anything other than what it is. And destroy my family in the process. Maya, your family destroyed itself the day they decided a dying child was expendable. You're just deciding whether to keep covering for them or to finally tell the truth. I thought about Rebecca, about the little girl in the photographs who'd looked so much like me. I thought about Catherine, who'd lost everything while my father built a new life on the foundation of her grief. I thought about the trust fund, the money that could have changed my life, sitting untouched while I'd struggled and scraped and tried so hard to earn love that was never going to come. But I also thought about Emma, who'd had nothing to do with any of this. About the cousins at the kids' table who would grow up knowing their uncle was a monster. About the ripple effects that would spread through our extended family, our social circle, my father's business. There's another option, Marcus said quietly, as if reading my thoughts. We could approach your father privately. Offer him a choice. He pays Catherine what he owes plus interest. He transfers the trust fund to you. And he agrees to genuine therapy and makes real amends. In exchange, we keep this quiet. You think he'd agree to that? I think he'd agree to anything to keep this from going public. The question is whether you'd be satisfied with private justice, or if you need the world to know what kind of man he really is. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from Emma. Maya, please come home. I don't understand what's happening, but I'm scared. Mom's been crying all morning, and Dad locked himself in his office. Whatever this is about, we can fix it. We're family. Family. The word that had defined my entire life. The thing I'd sacrificed so much to preserve. But what was family worth if it was built on lies and the bones of a dead child? I looked at Marcus, at the files spread across his desk, at the evidence of my father's cruelty laid out in black and white. Then I looked at my phone, at Emma's message, at the fear and confusion of a sister who'd done nothing wrong except be born into the same lie I'd been living. I want to see him, I said finally. I want to look my father in the eye and hear him try to justify what he did. But not at the house, not on his terms. Somewhere public, somewhere he can't control the narrative. Marcus nodded slowly. I know a place. Neutral ground. And Maya? Whatever you decide after that conversation, I'll support you. But remember, some people don't deserve forgiveness, no matter how much we want to give it to them. As I left his office, the weight of Rebecca's photographs in my purse felt like carrying a ghost. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn anyone's approval or fit into a space that wasn't meant for me. I was finally ready to take up the room I deserved, even if it meant burning down everything I'd once called home. The rain had stopped, and the afternoon sun was breaking through the clouds as I walked toward what I knew would be the most important conversation of my life. Behind me, I could feel the weight of 28 years of trying to be enough for people who would never see me as more than a replacement. Ahead of me was the truth, messy and painful and liberating. I was finally ready to choose Rebecca's memory over my father's comfort and my own peace over my family's lies. The little girl in the photographs deserved that much, at least. And so did I.